Hello everybody, welcome to Build or Buy. I want to thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be looking at something we've talked about before at the live meeting, but we've never made a video about it. And as we always say, never take anything for granted. Just because you know something doesn't mean that somebody else may not need to know it as well. So the information we're going to share in this video for Build or Buy is going to be about how to download for free the Windows installation media. Let's take a look. What we're going to need to do is, on a working computer, we're going to do a search for the Windows 10 ISO. And what you'll see is download the Windows 10 disk image ISO file. We're going to go to that link. This will be Microsoft, and you'll notice this says download Windows 10. Now, we do not want to upgrade the computer that we are working on. We want to download the Windows Media Creation tool so that we can then install that media that we've created on another computer. So what we'll do is, where it says create Windows 10 installation media, that's what we want to do. Download the tool. If you notice down here in the bottom left hand corner, Media Creation tool. I'm going to right click on that and show in the folder. Once you've downloaded the tool, execute it, and it will say getting a few things ready. Now this process takes about 30 minutes. And remember, we have downloaded the Windows Media Creation tool. From this tool, we will then proceed to create the installation media to a thumb drive. Now it's important to note, I've got a picture here of some thumb drives. This little thumb drive is a 32 gig stick. This package, these are 64 gig sticks. You have to understand what's going on with the process. When Windows creates the installation media and it copies that information to a thumb drive, that thumb drive will be formatted for FAT32. Your operating system will be NTFS. Because this is FAT32, it needs to be 32 gigs or less. If you buy 64 gig, it will not work, it will fail, it will always fail, until maybe one day they solve that and we have a different kind of routine. So I wanted to show you this package, which is from Costco, which is a great deal, but those are 64 gig sticks and they will not work for this purpose. You've got to have 32 gig or less. Now, 16 gig is perfect. I buy the 32 gig because of the price, then if I reuse them. And sometimes I have different versions of the Windows installation media on one of these drives. And I try to label them with a piece of notepad, stick them in a bottle tube so I can keep track of them. But right now the current version is probably the best way to go. And this is relevant because if you'll remember, we built the X399 motherboards. We built two of them. One of them we upgraded the Wi-Fi chip on, and at that time the Wi-Fi chip, Windows would blow up from the Windows Media Creation, and then you had to do a slipstream. Okay, going forward that problem can still occur for those that have upgraded to the new Wi-Fi, which is the Intel Wi-Fi 6. So 32 gig stick, this will work for everything you've got to do to install Windows. But if you've got the new Wi-Fi card, you need to, once you've downloaded this, you then need to watch our video about how to slipstream the drivers into this so Windows won't blow up on you. Okay, back to the installation media. We have to go through the EULA, good old EULA, and accept. It'll get a few things ready. Now what's going to happen is this media, as it gets ready, is going to look at and interrogate the machine we're downloading to. By default, it will make a selection based on this machine with the expectation the other machine you're going to install on is going to be the same. And this distinction is important. If you had Windows 10 Home and you want to go to Windows 10 Pro, you want to be sure and double check this. If you're, and this is a good time, that if you've got Windows 10 Home and you want to go to Windows 10 Pro, really all you need is a key. We'll do a separate video about how to acquire a Windows activation key inexpensively from someplace like VIP SCDKey. Little involved, kind of convoluted, but we'll get into that in another video. But for this video, we're just downloading the installation media. And if you've installed a new drive like we did with this X399, where we went from a 1 terabyte to a 2 terabyte NVMe, that's the reason that we need to do a new install, a clean install. And that's why we're downloading the tool again, because the tool we used last time, it's time to remake it. And that's what we're doing. So here's a good example. What do you want to do? Do you want to upgrade this PC? Absolutely not. We're going to create installation media either from a USB flash drive, a DVD, or an ISO file or another. Now, I will say it's a good idea to go ahead and do both. One, we're going to create the installation media, and if you're on a newer computer and you can install from a USB thumb drive, this is the way to go. If, however, you're on an older machine and you have to do this from a DVD, download the ISO. Now, it's always good for everybody to have a copy of the ISO. As of the last time I checked, which has been a little while, if Windows gets corrupted and the data store gets corrupted, the only way to install or to correct the data store corruption is you have to have that ISO, because it reaches inside that. It cannot reach inside this and fix the data store on the hard drive. So I'm just saying, if you ever have that problem, FYI. So we're going to create the installation media. We'll click Next. Now here's an important distinction. We're going to uncheck this default and show you some of the reasons of why this is important at this particular step. Now select Language, Architecture, and Edition. Please select from one of the available options to continue. Now if you'll notice, Language, Edition, and Architecture are grayed out, and it says use the recommended options for this PC. I'm going to uncheck this for just a second and show you why. The Edition Windows 10, there's only one, but the Architecture is 32-bit, 64-bit, or both. In this day and time, we're all running 64-bit processors. The only reason to have the 32-bit version is if by chance, for some reason, you might run across someone that needs it, then an FYI, but it's going to require more space, and it's going to take longer to create. So going with the default based on the machine we're coming from, that's going to be fine, and we're going to leave it. But I unchecked that to show you what the options would be if that were the case. Now, when we do the install routine is going to ask us which version of Windows we want. Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, and several others that are irrelevant that we won't use. Only two we're concerned with are Home and Pro, and we recommend going with Windows 10 Pro. And why? That's another conversation for another video. So we're going to replace the check mark. 64-bit is all we need, and we're going to go ahead and say Next. Now the question is, now we get to choose the media, as we said, either for a USB or for the DVD, an ISO file. Good idea to do both, but to be expedient for what we need for right now, we're just going to do this thumb drive. And this needs to be present in the machine for the next step because it's looking for this, and it will reformat this. So we're going to say USB flash drive. It says it needs to be at least 8 gig. Okay, I'm glad they make the point at least 8 gig, but they don't make the distinction of how big you can go. Again, to reiterate, 32 gig is the limit. That's the ceiling. If you got a 64 gig like we were showing in the video previously in this image, 64 gig will not work. It will fail, and you're wondering what's going on. So 32 gig or less, so between 8 gig and between 32 gig. Now, if we were to choose both versions, it would probably say 16 gig, but we're only choosing one, which is the 64-bit version. USB flash drive, click Next, and again, we got to make sure the drive's in the ready for us. I'm going to take this and plug it in. And by the way, this needs to be done on a USB 3 port, not a USB 2. Now, we are doing this from an Intel NUC, so when we plug in from this Intel NUC, we should see something on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner about that drive. And there it is. And that's the name that Windows is going to give it, ESD USB. We're going to go ahead and do this and remake it. Now remember, if you've got anything on that disk, we're getting ready to reformat that disk so that we can do an installation. Next, it sees the drive, and the next step is to go ahead and let it do its thing, and it'll reformat. It's pretty much automatic. Just takes a little time to do it, but when it's ready, then we'll flip this computer up, turn it on. First we'll do is go into the BIOS and double check and make sure we see our drive first. Then we'll be good to go for the install. So we could refresh the list. We've already plugged it in. Select the USB flash drive. We only have one plugged in, and the removable drive is the ESD USB. That's the same name it's going to give it. That's what this stick has been used for before. So getting a few things ready. Windows 10 setup. Downloading Windows 10. Feel free to keep using your PC. Progress, and you can see the progress bar at 7%. I would strongly advise, do not do anything else while this is proceeding because you don't want this to fail. You want to get this done, get it behind you, because our process is to get on to the other computer. We have an X399 system here we need to get up and running where we've gone from a 1 terabyte to a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. And yes, the 4 terabyte drives are out, but we had purchased the 2 terabyte drive right before the 4 terabyte drives came out. So we're going 2 terabyte now. Somewhere between a year and 2 years from now, we will upgrade that drive to a 4 terabyte. Progress bar at 50%. Downloading Windows 10 ISO. Unfortunately, you don't have to see this in real time. That's the magic of video. And you know, it's interesting. Some of the things we've thought about doing live, this is not one of them because it's like watching paint dry or grass grow. You don't want to sit there and wait for this to happen. Things need to happen quickly. So that's the power and the beauty of video. And a big part of the reason we're doing this is because we have installed an upgraded Wi-Fi card. So we wanted to download a new Windows Media Creation tool to get the later version of Windows, the more current version of Windows. If we were using a previous version, we would fail and we'd have to slipstream the drivers. So this is going to work for this particular machine. But for those that have installed the new Wi-Fi card from the Intel Wi-Fi 6, you're going to have to slipstream the drivers. Again, there's a video for that. Very important. So creating Windows 10 media, progress 10%. While I'm at it, I want to mention again for those that are on the Sneaker network, some of us still are, this deal from Costco with the 3-pack. You've got 3 64 gig sticks from SanDisk. Those are decent drives. They're color coded. You got red, blue, green. Nice package. But it just won't work for this. I think I got my last batch of these probably on Amazon. When we were doing another video where we showed how to, well, for example, those of you that use a password on Windows, we found a program that would let us crack that password. And they told us put it on as many machines as we could. So we were buying a quantity of these memory sticks, bukus of them, putting that program on there and sharing with everybody at the live meeting. We have a video up on that. That's why I say if you have a password on Windows, it's a good idea, but it's also easy to get rid of it. So why bother? But if you're on a public network, you'd want to have all your defenses up, shields up. Here's another example. This is what we're going to be using, which is the SanDisk USB 3. This is a 32 gig stick. It's 150 megabit transfer. These 64 gig sticks are too big. This is what you want to use, 32 gig or less. Now we have our media created, and I will say these things do get hot during the creation process and during the usage. Hot as a little red wagon, but as soon as you pull it out, they cool down, but it's normal. So it's going to shorten the life on them. So now all we need to do is get this installed, flip this up and see where we go. First thing we want to do is power up and make sure our drive's okay. And what we will do is get this up and go into the BIOS. Okay, what we're looking for in the BIOS is to make sure our drive is recognized, and it shows the boot option. Saber it sees the drive. What we want to do is make sure that the drive is recognized. It is. Now we can go to the next step, plug the drive in, and start the installation procedure. This is all about how to download the Windows Media Creation tool. So we've done that step. So that was the first part. Now